welcome back to Pro Life Without Borders with Sarah and Mikayla. We are continuing our guest series because we know you guys are probably tired of listening to us. And we have invited Ann O'Connor from NIFLA on. And Ann, I love Ann. I know that I get really excited about all of our guests, but I love Ann. So I became the executive director of Promise of Life Network in 2014. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like 12. I don't know why they promoted me. And I wanted to go to NIFLA's new director training, and it was full, of course, because it was in like 3 weeks. And I don't think I talked to you, but I talked to Tom, and I was like, I just don't know what I'm doing. I just became a director, and I don't even like drink coffee in the morning. And he's like, "Oh, we'll find space for you." And you guys did, and I went. I think he could sense the desperation in my tone, and
Oh,
it was very like a very pivotal moment for me, like being able to go to the training and like hear all the information and learn
oh,
everything
good.
that I needed to know. I remember taking like a bazillion notes, and we
Oh,
still
good.
use a lot of stuff that I learned at that training. Like one of the things we do every year, we do our annual directional statement. We still do the conflict
Fantastic.
resolution policy. We've amended it a little bit over the years, but it's pretty much the same thing
Hmm.
that you sent us. So yeah, NIFLA is an incredible friend
Wow.
for pregnancy centers.
That that's so nice to hear, Sarah. I'm so glad about that. And look at you now, just a few years later, and you're like the supreme executive director. All the directors are going to you to get advice. So,
Maybe not all, maybe one or two, maybe, I don't know. But so tell us a little bit about you. I probably should do better intros, but how did you get involved with NIFLA? Like how did that get going?
so I've been working for NIFLA for about 30 years. My oldest son, we had just adopted him, so I was going to part time and wanted to stay in the pro life movement. So connected with Tom then, and I worked part time for about 15 years. The last 15 years, I've been blessed to be working full time, and definitely need full time work in this. Helping pregnancy centers. It just has been amazing. But NIFLA was formed like 33 years ago in order to help pregnancy centers like raise the bar of how they do things so they could withstand the attacks that a lot of states and all the media have against pregnancy centers, all the misinformation out there. So it was Tom's vision to start NIFLA way back then. And we've just been trying to do it ever since. We got sued back like 25 years ago by Gloria Allred. She's an attorney in California, one of those feminist attorneys. And I was running the Right to Life League of Southern California back then. And we had 24 pregnancy centers. She sent in fake clients to our centers and then filed a lawsuit saying we were falsely imprisoning women, we were intentionally inflicting them with emotional distress. And the thing that she won on, though, was that we were practicing medicine without a license because we were doing pregnancy testing. And so the court held, yeah, to do that, you have to have a medical license. So that's where the whole medical conversion idea came from,
Hmm.
way back in the early 90s. And so Gloria Allred went to my law school,
Do you guys like
Loyola
know
Law
each other?
School. No, she's older than me, way older than me.
Well, I don't know who
But
she is. So.
she, Loyola Law School is a Jesuit law school. It wasn't very pro life back then either. But I thought, ooh, one day I'm going to see her at a class reunion and I'm going to make sure to go up to her and say, Gloria, I just want to thank you because what you meant for evil, God used for good for the saving of many lives, which is so literally applies to this situation.
Hmm.
And we've just seen God do that time and time again with pregnancy centers where we'll be beat up, but actually it will make us stronger.
Yep. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
always tough when you're kind of going through it, right? Because you're like, oh, just leave us alone. But I remember
Yeah.
when we used to do the self-administered pregnancy tests, and they had, you'd give them the test and give them the
Mm-hmm.
instructions, and they would do the
Mm-hmm.
whole thing. And we were like, you can't read the results. You have to tell them. They have to tell you what the results are. And then we transitioned from non-medical to medical. Well, we're a merged organization, so the half that I was with changed over in 2013, and it just changed the whole game for us. To be able to do ultrasounds and pregnancy testing, actually
Yes.
do the pregnancy testing. And we're
Yeah.
doing like STD testing and treatment now and well women exams.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a huge step for pregnancy centers. And we were just talking, I was talking to Amy Shearing this morning, um,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about utilizing mobile units in Pennsylvania to reach the rural communities and assist pregnancy centers who perhaps don't even need to go medical because they're, in these really small communities,
Right.
and providing support for them with mobile units. So I think that's going to be
Yeah.
our, the next step.
Very cool.
Yeah. Always something to do, right?
Oh, yeah, always.
We don't get bored. Although I am questioning, like, how part time were you really at NIFLA? Because
Yeah.
you're like, I was part time. I only worked 39 and a half hours.
Yeah, just like you, I'm sure. And Mikayla, like you work it because you got to get the work done. It's that important, right?
Yep. Yeah. You can't just walk away at the end of the day and say, oh, I'll get that
Mhm.
later. Yeah. None of
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
so there's lots going on in the legal sphere right now. There's a ton
Yeah.
of cases we could talk about. The one and I know we talked about this before, but is first choice, and we've been watching this, especially as Pennsylvanians, right? Because we're right across the river, and
Yeah.
of course it hits home for you because you're in New Jersey.
That's right.
So tell us, like, what's happening with that, and how did it start, and where is it right now? Because it's pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. So, our Governor Murphy and our Attorney General Platkin really hate pregnancy centers. And it's so sad because Murphy's, an Irish Catholic. But he's going to be
Can we
leaving
call his
office.
grandma? Can we call his grandmother and
Yeah.
get a hold of
Yeah.
him?
Maybe his priest. um, but um, he's out of office this November. He terms out. So we have an opportunity. We have a semi good candidate running against a pro abortion candidate. So we have an opportunity to change things. But when Dobbs came down in 2022, our state buckled down and set up a reproductive rights strike force. It wasn't even called a task force, it was called a strike force. And they were going to make sure abortion was expanded in New Jersey, that it could be an abortion destination, that there would be no limits at all, no hindrance at all. And they also targeted anyone who opposed abortion, including pregnancy centers. They issued a consumer alert warning all of us in New Jersey about how terrible pregnancy centers are, and we're actually pro life and we don't do abortions. Yeah.
Shocking.
Um, and so we were kind of upset about that. So a group of pregnancy centers, we called them the Consortium of Pregnancy Centers, we filed an open public record request against the state asking for their factual basis for issuing this consumer alert. Because, if the Attorney General issues a consumer alert about something, it's because there's fraud or lots of complaints filed or things like that. So we had to fight hard to get any documents from them. We got a lot of emails. They admitted there's never been a complaint filed against a pregnancy center in New Jersey, so that's not what caused it to happen. Then we had to push harder and harder to get more things. We had to go bring them to court to get the court to compel them to give us things, because they were claiming, oh, there's just way too much to give you. It's too
So much.
burdensome for us. Yeah.
So much. We can't even
So
send you one thing. It's too much.
yeah. But what we ended up getting was emails that this strike force had with Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, and the largest abortion clinic, which is located in Cherry Hill, right on the border of Pennsylvania, where they ran the consumer alert by them and said, do you have any recommendations? All the recommendations they got back from these three agencies, they incorporated into their consumer alert and published it. Of course, they never contacted us to see what was going on or anything. So that was a
They
good
do the same
find.
thing in Pennsylvania. It's the same thing. They'll call
Yeah.
all the pro-abortion advocates and be like, "Hey, what do you think about pregnancy centers?" But they never,
Oh,
they don't
yeah.
call us.
Yeah. So that actually helped, show that they're targeting us with hostility, that they're going to our competitors to try and hurt us. So then, right after that, the Attorney General issued investigative subpoenas on 2 pregnancy centers. So he probably didn't like that we were poking the bear so much and like going, yo, and in New Jersey, we're kind of like, yo, man, get rid of that. We asked for a meeting, we asked him to withdraw it, nothing, of course. So right after that, he issued these like 3-page long investigative subpoenas asking for all this back data for 10 years, all their advertising, all their solicitation letters, trying to, dig whether they're misleading or not. And one of the centers is actually run by a pastor and is very religious. So they don't really have authority to go in and ask all that. So that's kind of on the back burner. That center is being represented by the Christian Legal Society. But First Choice, which is a pregnancy center in North Jersey, they have 5 locations. They're medical as well. They are a typical 501c3 faith-based nonprofit. And right away, we connected them with ADF, who jumped in to represent them and negotiate about responding to this investigative subpoena. So attorney generals have this power. It's kind of scary that they can issue anybody in their state an investigative subpoena, even though there's not been a complaint filed, even though there's no case pending, there's no allegations. It's like a fishing expedition to see what they can find. So
That
the
is so
center
odd. That's not like considered an unreasonable search and seizure.
should be,
Yeah.
right? Should
Isn't
be.
that like in the Constitution?
Yeah, should be. So First Choice cooperated on a lot of the things, gave all the fundraising letters, gave all their advertisements, things like that. But the state also wanted their donor list. And First Choice said, no, we're not giving you our donors list. There are cases that say that's private. The state can't go after that. But the state wanted to contact all the donors to see if they were misled in believing that they were giving to an organization that did abortions and not pro-life organizations. So, I mean, just ridiculous. Can you imagine the state having the list of all their donors and what they would do? They probably all get audited in their tax returns
Oh
and stuff
yeah,
like
I'm
that,
sure it would be an absolute nightmare. That would make people want to
Yeah.
donate, wouldn't it?
You know what else the attorney general did? They, I guess, like payroll records that are filed, payroll tax records that are filed with the state, they contacted former employees of the center to try and interview them about whether the center is deceptive or not.
Man, they
Yeah,
were digging, weren't they?
digging. Yeah. So the problem is when First Choice said no, we're not giving you our donor list. At that point, like we're like, this is harassment. So ADF filed on their behalf a claim in federal court saying, hey, the state has gone too far and they're violating our First Amendment rights of association and speech. At the same time, the state filed a motion to compel answering the investigative subpoena in state courts. So now we're in 2 jurisdictions, and both courts are kind of punting the ball back and forth to each other. Oh, federal court can't do it because it's a state court issue. State court saying, well, federal law should be handled by the federal court. It went up to appeal in both jurisdictions, came back down, went all the way. We went all the way up to the Supreme Court to ask for some guidance here. And at first, they didn't take the case. This was like over a year ago. But then we went to the Third Circuit and got a split opinion there. It's all about whether it's ripe for the federal case. So they did one last cert petition to the Supreme Court. And in June, the Supreme Court granted the case. And the Supreme Court gets 8,000 appeals every year, and they only take 1%. So it was awesome that
Well,
they
I
took it.
remember watching it because I'm in like their Facebook group, and I'm watching. It's like they were relisted something like 9 times before they
Yes.
actually were taken, and so every
Yeah.
time they're like, "Oh, we were relisted. Oh, we were relisted,"
Yeah.
which is good, because it means you haven't been
Mm-hmm.
rejected. But I can't even
Right.
imagine, like, we're across the river, right? It's sort of, I mean, we're on the other side of the state and we're watching all this
Yeah.
happen and we're like, we're on like pins and needles because whatever
Yeah.
happens is going to be so
Mm-hmm.
important for pregnancy centers.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, definitely.
Because the
I mean,
idea
this
that like
is,
every donor could just have all of their information willy-nilly just given over to
yeah.
the attorney general, that's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's wrong. It's definitely wrong. And I think it was right for the Supreme Court to take the case. And it's really not about, is the Attorney General being, hostile because of the center's point of view. The specific issue that the Supreme Court granted it on is, it's kind of a little complicated, but it says, where the subject of a state investigatory demand has established a reasonable objective chill of its First Amendment rights. So it's kind of, the Supreme Court's kind of saying, okay, First Choice has shown us their First Amendment rights have been chilled
Mm-hmm.
objectively. Is the federal court in a first filed action deprived of jurisdiction because those rights must be adjudicated first in state court? So it's really a jurisdiction issue. If the Supreme Court rules no, the federal court had jurisdiction, that's a huge win for us because we want to be in federal court with constitutional kind of claims. If they say the federal court doesn't have jurisdiction, then we have to go back and fight the attorney general in state court on the motion to compel our answers. So it'll be a lot harder to get federal constitutional protection there. So, and we don't have an argument date yet, but we think it will be October, November, or December, hopefully. So, and it's so much fun to go to the Supreme Court and watch it happen. You guys should do a road trip. You could do a podcast on the road
Well, I
and
feel
come
like
down and do it.
I want to go. Like, I don't even know, like, what do you even do when you get there? I don't even know, but I want to go
Yeah, I
because
was
I
like,
feel
what
like
do we
it's
have to do to
fun.
go?
I missed out on NIFLA versus Becerra. I didn't get to go hear that
Yeah,
argument, you know? And so, like, this, I'm like, I feel like this is part
yeah.
of my, like, evolution as a pro life woman. I need to go hear a
You
Supreme
should
Court.
go. Yeah. The problem is you're going to have to sleep out all night long the night before on a line in order to make sure you get in because they have limited space. So bring a sleeping bag.
Fine. We could do that.
Yeah, yeah. We'll plan. Like, it'll be fine.
It'll be so
I'm
fun.
down. It'll be
In
so.
December.
Can you
Milk and
imagine?
hot chocolate.
Yeah, we're excited.
That's awesome. Okay, so that's First Choice. That's what's happening there. And then there's a lot
Yeah.
of other cases, but like if you could pick like the most interesting one, what do you think the other current like interesting case would be right now?
Oh, that's so hard for me because they're just all so exciting. But I was at a hearing a couple weeks ago in Manhattan on the New York APR case, and that is very exciting because so what happened is the state attorney general there, also terrible, filed a state action against 12 pregnancy centers and Heartbeat International,
Mm-hmm.
saying they were doing misleading advertisement by advertising about APR, right? So quick, we went in and on behalf of all our other members and two pregnancy centers joined us, filed in federal court because it's better to have constitutional issues handled by the federal court, and said, hey, what the attorney general is doing is violating our First Amendment rights because now we're scared to death to advertise about APR, that we're going to get sued in state court by her.
Well, hold
And
on real quick before you keep going. So for those who
yeah.
maybe aren't aware, so APR is
Yeah,
abortion pill
push and pull
reversal.
reversal.
And as we talked about before on the podcast, women take mifepristone and then they usually wait 24 hours and they take misoprostol. And if they start the APR regimen, which is essentially just a ton of progesterone, which is not,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a medical term, a ton, but like a bunch of progesterone, it
Mm-hmm.
overcomes the effects of the mifepristone, and something like 60 to 70% of pregnancies then will continue. And so Heartbeat
Yes.
has a really robust database of women who have successfully carried after using APR, abortion pill reversal.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it's constantly under attack. Even when I did the hearing with the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, or not a hearing, I guess, but it was like a don't even know what it was. It was very intimidating. They asked me about APR, and like I'm not even an APR. We're not even an APR center,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're really like, oh, women shouldn't be taking this dangerous drug. This dangerous
Oh
drug,
yeah.
progesterone. Well, at the
Yeah.
time, and this is when I told my mom, I was like, well, we weren't going to talk about the embryo adoption, but now I talked about it in front of like the entire Democratic, whatever. So we're going to have to like tell Grandpa. Um, I was taking progesterone because I had done
Uh-huh.
this embryo adoption, and you have to
Uh-huh.
take progesterone as part of that. And I remember
Yeah.
asking, because of course I'm me and I'm difficult. I asked the person at like the clinic, the IVF clinic that we did the embryo adoption through, and I said, "Well, what isn't this super dangerous? Like, I shouldn't be taking all this." And they're like, "Oh no, it's not dangerous at all. You can take as much as you want. Like, it's not going to hurt you. You can't have too much progesterone. Women have been using this since the 1950s." And so there's definitely this like political agenda of like, "Oh, it's
Oh
so
yeah.
dangerous. You shouldn't be doing that." But then when you talk to someone
Right.
who's actually in the business of helping women become or stay pregnant, they're like, "Oh, it's
Yeah.
no big deal. Just take as much as you want."
Oh yeah.
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 So anyway,
I
go ahead. I
I
just
took
wanted
it
to
for
like
my
back up and talk about APR
yeah.
for a second.
I took progesterone in my last pregnancy because of the threat of miscarriage.
Hmm.
It provides a safe place. Bolsters the womb for the unborn child. So yeah, it's naturally produced
Yeah.
progesterone, and it's been around forever. No one's if Pfizer or Johnson were making money off this, you'd probably hear a different tune, but no one's making money off of progesterone either.
Because it's so old. Yeah.
So, um, so what happened in federal court? It was up in Buffalo in the district court. We went in and asked for an injunction to prevent the attorney general from going after the other centers in the state and allow us to continue advertising APR. And the judge was so great. He wrote the best opinion. He granted us our injunction. And, he was asking the attorney general's office, like, well, are there any, do you have any proof that women have been harmed by this APR? And they're like, no, we don't have any, but, the centers are being deceptive. So the judge said, it's part of our First Amendment rights because we're motivated with our pro-life faith-based beliefs to share with women that there's this option for them to save their child. It was a great decision. But of course, they appealed it, and that's what was heard on June 24th, Dobbs Day, in Manhattan before a 3-court appellate panel. And they were very interested to know, they seem to be really concerned about whether advertising APR is a commercial transaction. Because if it's commercial speech, it's less protected
Hmm.
than speech that is advocating our beliefs. So, I mean, it is clearly not commercial speech. We're not getting paid for it. No one's making money from it, etc. But that's the state's angle, that somehow, we're making money. Someone's making money off this, and it's commercial, and therefore gets less protection. So, why that's so interesting is a almost identical case is happening on the West Coast in California, and the California lower court ruled against us. So we're working on a circuit split where New York is ruling for us, California is ruling against us, and when circuits split like that, the Supreme Court is likely to take the case.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that will probably head up to the Supreme Court as well. Yeah.
This all sounds like so much work. I think like as an average person, even someone who's kind of in the know as a pregnancy center leader, I'm like, you hear, oh, it went to this case, it went to that case. This is a lot of work.
Oh, well, and thank God for Alliance Defending Freedom and Thomas More Foundation. They're amazing attorneys. Thomas More is helping the centers in Massachusetts. I don't know why on our East Coast we have all these terrible attorney generals that hate pregnancy centers, but the Massachusetts Attorney General is going after centers as well. They had an $8 million campaign against pregnancy centers. I'm sure you saw that.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah,
That's so much money. Like, is that
8
really how
million.
we should be spending taxpayer dollars, just
Right,
attacking
right,
pregnancy centers?
right. Yep. So, but Alliance Defending Freedom, they represented us in the NIFLA versus Becerra case, and that was a great win. So, thank God we have these constitutional litigation
Mhm.
groups that love pregnancy centers, understand how they work, and come right in to defend them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
huge blessing, especially like you can feel really vulnerable as a pregnancy center. Like we don't have
Yeah.
a lawyer on
Yep.
retainer. We don't have this huge budget that we could spend on legal fees. So knowing that like the ACLJ and ADF and NIFLA are out there is huge for us
Mm-hmm.
because
Yes.
people hate us and it doesn't
Yeah.
really make sense. But it's a fact. And so and even
It's,
like this whole
yeah.
like APR thing, I mean, women are like objectively choosing to continue their pregnancies and it's being successful. And the
Right.
pro-choice crowd is all about choice. That's what they tell us, right? Like women should be able to choose what they want to do. Okay, well these women are choosing to reverse their abortion and try to have a
Mm-hmm.
healthy pregnancy. So what's the problem?
Right.
Like why are you so against that? And I
It's
don't think I've ever
choice.
heard a good answer.
Yeah. No. Oh, because it's dangerous for women, they
Yes,
say.
dangerous for
Yeah.
women. There's no
Yeah.
evidence, but they're sure it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So another great case is out of Delaware. Same, we got this East Coast thing going. So Delaware introduced a bill last year, which was almost identical to the bill that was fought in the NIFLA versus Becerra case out of California. It required the centers there to post a sign saying, "We are not a licensed medical facility and we have no medical providers providing services." And they had to put on all their advertising and post it real big in the waiting room and in a second place in the center. There's 4 centers in Delaware. All 4 are medical. They're not required to get licensed. There is no licensing of clinics in
Mm-hmm.
Delaware. And the way the law defined if you're a medical, if you have a medical provider, it excluded nurses. So most of the centers have nurses on site under the direction of a physician providing the services, but that didn't qualify under the law. So when the law passed, the centers would have had to post this notice in all their advertising and everything, say, "We're not medical, but come to us for ultrasound and pregnancy tests." Like, hello. So, and when Delaware had introduced this and was having hearings on it, of course, the centers all testified. I went down and I'm like holding the NIFLA versus Becerra decision, quoting exactly what Justice Thomas said, why that was unconstitutional, saying, hello, I mean, there's constitutional precedent exactly on point that this is unconstitutional. They don't care. They literally don't care that it's unconstitutional or not. So we had to file a lawsuit there. And ADF is representing us with a local firm who's awesome. But the great thing that happened there is the state attorney general agreed to like a self-imposed injunction. He wouldn't enforce the law while we're going through litigation. So yeah. So waiting to
Oh my
get
goodness.
deposed there.
Yeah. And I think the average person is definitely not aware of all of this background legal work that's being done and
Yeah.
how much effort is aimed against pregnancy centers.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, you have this pregnancy center in your town and they seem really nice and maybe you've been to their banquet or maybe you've donated something or you've stopped in, but like they're at the center of like a firestorm. Even if
Yeah.
they're not currently being litigated against, they're part of a group of organizations that people just
Mm-hmm.
they just come after.
Yeah.
And I wish more people realize like how heavy the fighting is sometimes.
Yeah. And pregnancy centers, they like to stay under the radar and just serve. Like they don't need to be on the battlefield, the legal battlefield. So people have really had to rise to the challenge. Like Amy Huber in First Choice, she we started this consortium of centers here in New Jersey and we wanted to take some action. She's like, I'm focusing on serving. And then she gets served with this investigative subpoena. And now she's like the spokesperson for pregnancy centers during this whole case. And she's so well spoken. Like, for example, she's like, and they're asking for our donor information. And she goes, we have nothing to hide, but we have a lot to protect. And we're not giving them that, you know?
Yep, good for her. No, I've been really
Yeah.
impressed by her by the pieces that I've seen. And it's something
Yeah.
that we talk about in Pennsylvania too. Like the time for flying under the radar is not now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And we're watching these examples of other states around us with hostile attorney generals and hostile governors, which we have. And we're like, we can't just hope that nothing bad happens. It's
Right.
just not feasible.
Right. Well, you guys are really being proactive and doing a lot of good. I know they took away your funding, but God provides.
Yes.
And just the fact that you can get through your whole halls of your legislature and let them know, hey, we help women. This is what we've done to help women, all at free to the taxpayer, is huge.
Yeah, it's a very significant message, and we've had we've provided letters and things like that for pregnancy centers to use to invite their legislators to tour, and they've been using it, and it's been great to see all the pictures of like just showing their legislators what they do and how they do it and letting them see the facility, and it makes such a difference for them to feel connected. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on. Every legislator should tour their local pregnancy center and see how they're serving and how they're helping. Yeah.
Very good.
One thing that's been interesting the last couple weeks, maybe a little bit longer, but mostly the last couple weeks. So this big, beautiful bill has passed, right? And not us, we have not heard anything like this yet, but other centers are saying that their clients are coming to them and saying, oh, I have to have an abortion because now I can't get Medicaid and I won't have health insurance. And how am I going to afford to have a baby without health insurance? And so that's kind of the like narrative that's out there right now. So could you tell us, like, is that real?
That's such a false narrative. Absolutely false. It's like, all these seniors are going to get kicked off Medicare. My mother, who's turning 90, is like, they're going to take my Medicare away. I'm like, Mom, what news channels are you watching? Like,
you're like deleting them off for TV.
Oh. So, I mean, they're real specific about this. There are going to be cuts, but it's not going to be from people who are eligible. It's going to be from people who are abusing the system, and there's federal help and there's state help as well. So I would tell these women, that's just not true. And there's a lot that the law is being challenged now, of course. So there's going to be a lot more that happens down the road about this. And even if it were true, we can still help you. We'll help you figure it out. Right?
Yeah. And I think that's the message that we've shared with our clients forever, right? Like, okay, well, no one knows the future. Yeah. We don't know either, but whatever it is, we're going to walk with you and encourage you and be here for you. And so we do.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to let Mikayla ask the next question because I will keep up.
I'm just like so fascinated. I'm over here like taking notes, and I'm like, oh man, like I'm just like trying to keep up.
We should do the summit together at NIFLA next year. It's a jam.
Okay.
Yes.
You go and you feel like you have the intelligence of a potato because you're listening to like all these attorneys and they're like rattling all this stuff off, and you're just like.
That's the thing. Like I'm not like I don't feel intimidated super easily. Like, but I'm like, oh, okay. Like I'm like trying to take notes. I'm like, oh no, I don't know anything.
Oh my gosh. You know a lot about doing international programs and podcasts and running a local center. It's a lot easier sitting back here, believe me.
I don't know that I know that much about doing podcast stuff.
We don't.
As people will attest, like that is not my strong suit. I am really interested. So I know Sarah and I both field a lot of questions from donors or just people in general who I think assume that we know more than we do about, like every piece of legislation that has ever crossed the desk of any state. I'm like, I didn't even grow up in this country. I am trying to keep up. Like, do you have any advice? Like, how can people learn, like, what is the best way for people to learn and to stay up to date about legislation that they care about? Because I feel like people want to know, but they also are only hearing about legislation that's hitting those major news outlets. Like I've gotten a lot of questions about the South Carolina case.
South,
Yeah.
Regarding like Medicare not funding abortions anymore.
Right.
And one, I guess, what would you have to say about that case specifically? And two, like, where can people actually go to learn about things? Because the local pregnancy center in Pennsylvania is not it.
Yeah, I know, and it's so hard to know if you're getting the real news or biased news. I know, I deal with that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, South Carolina was a huge win, but it was really about state autonomy, which is what America is about. Like the federal government is only supposed to be doing certain things, and then the states are supposed to be able to govern their own what's going on in their own state. So that was a great ruling, but it only affects South Carolina. And there's challenges through this big beautiful bill and all of that when it all pans out, we'll see what really happens. But they make it sound like, oh, no one can get an abortion in South Carolina, just like no one's getting an abortion in Texas and Florida and Arkansas and Alabama, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but where to get good news? The good news stations, that's hard. I mean, in Pennsylvania, of course, you have your Family Policy Council. What are they called there?
Family.
Pennsylvania.
Wow, why did I just blank on that?
Are you thinking of PFI?
PFI?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
Pennsylvania Family Institute. I said family first.
Family Institute.
Yeah, and I was like, no, that's not it.
That's not it?
Yeah.
And then I just panicked. Yes, Pennsylvania Family Institute.
Yeah, and I know
Sorry,
they're
Dan
very
and Randy.
supportive of the centers in Pennsylvania. And when I have a legal question about Pennsylvania, I call them, and they're so helpful. So they would be a good source about state legislation. Federal legislation, it's hard to get the word. I mean, there's a couple really good bills that were introduced this year that promote pregnancy centers. One is called Let Pregnancy Centers Serve. It was introduced by Chris Smith, and we went down for the press conference for that. And it's basically like, just let pregnancy centers serve,
Just leave us alone.
Stop discriminating against them because they're pro-life, and don't target them. And so there were a lot of co-sponsors on that, but it never got any further, and we try to send mailers out and say, contact your representative and tell them to vote yes and stuff. There was also, inquiries about violence against pregnancy centers that were going on. Like over 100 centers have been vandalized, some firebombed. So now under the new administration, it's getting a little better, and they're investigating those things. But yeah, it's hard to get information that you can really count on. There are some good groups like AUL tracks legislation, Americans United for Life, SBA, Susan B. Anthony. They were big on the big beautiful bill.
Mm-hmm.
They stayed up all night and were lobbying for it. And Planned Parenthood has now sued the federal government because they don't have enough money, Their executive director gets paid $1 million a year.
That is a lot more than I get paid.
Yeah, I was about to say, wow, that's
by almost $1 million.
On the backs of poor women.
Right. Yeah, because they're and the irony is now we don't have an actual Planned Parenthood in our community, but we have some other clinics that are pretty hand in glove with Planned Parenthood, and none of the services they provide are free.
No.
Like none of them.
No.
I don't even think you could walk in there for free. Like I think.
Like it's like a cover charge, like a club.
Yeah, I think at the door they're like, that'll be $5.
And and we're doing everything. We don't charge our clients at all. And if we do, it's not us specifically, but if a pregnancy center does charge, it's usually for sort of a sort of extra service, like a specific type of test for STDs or. Right. It's usually extremely minimal, like barely.
It's usually at cost. Yeah.
Right.
And so it is frustrating to hear constantly how much poor women need Planned Parenthood, and I'm like, I don't think they do.
Yeah.
Throw that out there.
Yeah. But it's great that you're doing Well Women's exams because then they don't have to go to Planned Parenthood.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know,
and we're
they
looking
can
to
come.
add some more tests and some more things, just to make sure that we're covering like everything that women need, and that they
Yep.
can come in and they can get the service for free or for very, very cheap. They can talk to someone who cares
Yeah.
about them, and get
Yeah.
the help and the treatment that they need.
Yeah. And you know what else is great about that, Sarah, is young Christian women who are starting in their first, well, women's exam, going to you, someone like you, they're not going to be like, handed condoms and put on the pill,
Yep.
and 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 treated like, oh, you're still a virgin, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Which happened to my daughter. She just recently went for a well women's visit, and she lives out of state, so she went to doctor on our plan, and they're like, well, we want to run STD testing, and she's like, why? Like, they couldn't believe, you
Hmm.
know so
Yeah, I had some health problems in college, and I eventually just gave up trying to convince anyone that I wasn't pregnant, because they just, every time I went in, they were like, oh, we need to do a pregnancy test. And I was like, no, 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 I can't be pregnant. And they're like, well, you can be. And I'm like, no, I can't.
I was thinking,
Yeah.
I guess it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. I had to get an X-ray done, and they pregnancy tested me before.
yeah,
Before you get an X-ray done, they're asking the questions, and I'm like giving them, the types of questions they ask. I have the answer. I pull out my app, and I'm like, here's, the information you need. I still had
yeah,
to take a pregnancy test. I was like, my chances of pregnancy have not changed.
yeah.
They're still zero.
Hmm. Yeah, that's funny.
So close, so zero. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
So
like,
Yeah.
they're very zero.
glad you were on today. I really appreciate your time. So zero.
Yeah, it was great being with you
We're so
all.
glad that you joined us, and it was so awesome. I love hanging out with you. I really wanted to come to the summit this year, but our twin, my little hospital twin, was discharged like 2 weeks before. My husband would have killed
Yeah.
me if I had been like, well, I'm going to the beach.
Yeah.
You have
Well,
fun
bring him
with our
next
medically
year.
fragile.
Bring him
He would
next
be
year.
he would be so noisy.
I was about to
Oh.
say he would be such a distraction. You really don't want this baby at your summit.
Oh. He would be the star.
The last time I was at the summit, I was like 8 weeks pregnant. And I was like coaching myself, like, Sarah, you don't have to tell everyone you're pregnant. It's not that big a deal. Ended up announcing it in front of the entire crowd. And like, I remember I ran into one of my friends and she's like, Sarah. And I was like, I'm pregnant. So yeah, that's how good I am at keeping those kind of secrets. So we normally end our podcast with what we call a Jesus moment, which is just a minute to like reflect on God and Christ and the Bible. And so Mikayla usually has that for us. Do you have anything? You're making faces at me. You don't have
Mikayla always has to do the Jesus moment.
I did everything. I was talking the whole time. I don't want to be the only talker.
I just think about being a voice for the voiceless. These are cases that are being argued about people who aren't here. And I mean, we know that, that they're here, but there's not always like a tangible, here's the person that you're advocating for. Especially when it comes to some of these abortion bills. Now, I think when we're talking about pregnancy centers and things like that, like, yes, here is the centers, like, here's the face of pregnancy help workers. And I just remember, I think it was very impactful at the Pennsylvania March for Life last September. Sarah and I actually got to go on stage because along with a bunch of other pregnancy help workers, and it really put faces to people, like this is what we're fighting for.
Right.
But I think that can be a little bit more difficult when who you're fighting for is not here yet.
Yeah.
But we're still called to do that. And so I think the work of people like NIFLA and ADF and people like that who are fighting the legal battles that need to be fought are just really doing that in a really spectacular way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like it's our calling as Christians is to protect the fatherless and the vulnerable and those who can't protect themselves. And there really isn't anyone that is more vulnerable than an unborn child.
Yeah. Created in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment of conception.
The very
like how
moment.
It must grieve him. Abortion must just grieve him so.
And I'm reading
deeply.
through Kings and Chronicles right now in my like Bible reading, and I'm reading about like the Israelites not taking down the high places and not stopping the sacrifices to Molech. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
that's us. Like we
That's
just keep,
us.
as a culture, like as a people, we just keep allowing it to happen, and
Yeah.
it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
But
But I
God,
think the younger generation is hearing it more,
mm-hmm.
and hopefully they'll turn it around.
Yes, that's my hope. That's what I'm hoping for with
Mm-hmm.
my kids, like teaching them and
Yes.
helping them understand and helping them see like this isn't how we have to live. We don't have to live with this specter of abortion hanging over us every minute of every
Yeah.
day.
Yep.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us, and we will see
Yeah.
all of our so many faithful listeners next week. Thanks, Anne.
Okay. Well, God bless you.